This video is brought to you by GameMaker. If you've ever wanted to get into game development, GameMaker does this really crazy thing where it's free. Just start making and only pay when you want to release your game to the world commercially.
It's fast, it's user-friendly, and there's easy-to-follow tutorials, plus a dedicated community to help answer even my questions. How make man jump? GameMaker is a 2D game engine that's helped bring some of yours and my favorite recent experiences to life, like UFO 50, Chicory, Anton Blast, and of course, Yahtzee's own Starstruck Vagabond.
Ooh, we talking about GameMaker? I love that program, it's so easy to use. As well as Starstruck Vagabond, I also used it to make all 12 projects in my 12 games in 12 months Dev Diary challenge. And I couldn't believe how much sex I got out of that. None. I got none at all. Which I couldn't believe.
So what are you waiting for? Head on over to the GameMaker link in the description and start cracking away today, because we want to play your game.
Yeah, looking through this list, I'm seeing one of you made Armpit Fart Tycoon, and I've got several questions for you. Oh,
wow, you missed the memo,
hello.
Mike.
And welcome
Missed the memo.
to
I
Dev
abstained from your silliness. Please continue, Jay.
It's fine. It's fine. Wait. Let's all catch it. Let's all catch it once more.
Wait,
No,
I
no,
don't
I'm
get it.
the okay. Tina's
he's
did it.
sitting our-
Or
I don't know how. I've tried before. Now I feel embarrassed because I can't rest my chin on my hands.
okay. Let's rewind. Hello. Welcome to DevHeads, the podcast focused on the ins, outs, and goings on of game development, with host experience ranging from indie, double to AAA. I'm Jay, and as always, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host Tina.
Hi, I represent AAA, which is an amazing place to be in for today's topic.
And Mikey,
Hello, I represent AA.
which is a moderately better place to be
Which
for
is,
today's topic.
You know, in between. Was that a bark?
Yes, AA.
So Tina, as the person kind of under the heel for this topic, what is today's topic?
It is AAA IP creatively bankrupt? And that is an answer we're trying to give today.
Yeah, and I'm sure our audience has a lot of thoughts on this topic. If you have any, and you have any questions that you would like us to answer through this podcast, chuck it in a wee little dono. Maybe we'll read it. Maybe we will read it out.
Yeah, I guess we already got one. Should we read it? The first one we got before the show started. It comes from Far Too Many Frogs for $2, and they say, and I quote, "My OST to jewelry, 5 pieces and minimum is done." And
Boom.
I will not elaborate on what they said. So there you go.
If it's
I'm
frogs
glad we can
talking
be an
about
OST.
jewelry, I think I understand this reference. When I did my Hideous Destructor game night on Discord, Frogs was there watching me go through Doom with that hardcore mod and was making some jewelry and shared some pictures. So thank you, Frogs. It was a cool piece.
Yeah.
I remember the vivid blues on the one that you did. So glad that you're here with us.
Love it. So I know everyone listening and watching probably has an answer to this question in a short form, but I want to dive into details. So, guys, what do we mean by creative?
Damn, we're getting into the thick of it.
Well,
Define creative.
Like when you say creatively
'cause we-
bankrupt, we need to understand what it means when you say creative.
Okay, here's what I would say the core of this question is getting at. It's more about innovation in the space of video game making. It's about taking risks to try different stuff. It's about being different in a way that is fun, an improvement or iteration of a previous thing, or at least experimental in the hopes that you get to that, even if you don't get to that. I think that what the question implies is that in AAA, you have less of that ability. Not necessarily the willpower is lacking, because it's probably there, but I think that there's a fair assertion that AAA can't take risks because they can't afford to. I think that's what it's getting at.
Yeah, the direct definition is relating to or involving the imagination or original ideas, especially in the production of an artistic work. So I think you summed it up really well, Mikey, of just innovating or being different within a space, and how it is, for a lot of reasons, which I'm sure Tina can speak to, is very difficult to do that when your budget is so big and there's so much on the line, right?
Oh, so much money.
I know.
What are we gonna do? Okay, look, just right out the gate, I want people to understand that my answer to this is no. And I'm happy to dive into why. But we have 3 games that we want to use to help drive this conversation. And we may deviate from those, but we should probably start with the 3 that we chose.
Yeah, those are, for different reasons. We have Assassin's Creed Shadows, which I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, if you have a different perspective, is speaking to the idea of sequelization and how a lot of sequels become homogenous and doing the same things, just in slightly different settings. We also have The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, which is just the idea of AAA regurgitating the same stuff that people wanted, but just updating it. And also slightly different, just as a talking point, not necessarily that it's doing any of these things, but Atomfall from Rebellion, which is trying to do something different in the kind of immersive kind of sim, kind of Fallout-esque space. And thinking, why did they have the chance to, get creative with that, where something like Fallout hasn't had the chance to do that for the last 15 years?
So where do we start, homies?
Let's start with Assassin's Creed and Sequelization, because I think you can speak to this, Tina, with working on such a big franchise like Call of Duty. And that is a game, and you were mentioning this, I'd love for you to take the reins on this one. You were saying just before that you did an interview with someone and they told that it was just the same thing over and over?
Yeah, so Jason Schreier interviewed me for a podcast he was doing before he joined Bloomberg. At the time, I think I was in production for Call of Duty. But he basically asked, isn't Call of Duty Infinite Warfare just a copy-paste of a Call of Duty game? And I think a lot of people probably might assume the same for a new Assassin's Creed game. And to those people, I would like to say that it's not just a copy and paste, even though some parts of the formula may be, but there's so much more nuance and so much more detail that goes into these games at a AAA level that I can comfortably say, no, that's not the case, right? There's a huge undertaking to creatively understand what your audience loves about your game, and then trying to drive a unique factor that would entice them to buy your next game, but also enjoy it and participate in playing it, right? That's why it's hard for me to just, when I look at a new Assassin's Creed game, I don't have any sort of ill thoughts about it being just more of the same, because I know that it's not on a developer level, right?
For sure.
But Mikey, you might feel a little bit differently. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that it really. I want to get a little bit comparative, I guess. I think that it's fair to say that the Call of Duty series has introduced innovations and taken risks and tried new stuff. One of my favorite examples of this is when they tried doing the DMZ mode, right, years ago. And you could argue, well, that was just derivative of Escape from Tarkov and the raid shooter style of game mode. But it was still a risk for them. So I would applaud that. I would also applaud the fact that in the new Modern Warfare 2 that came out in 2022, trying to have all the campaign missions and have each one of them have some sort of unique gameplay experience, whether that's vehicle-based, convoy, Mad Max style level, or a survival-y level where you're trying to stumble around a dark city in Mexico while you're wounded. There are a bunch of cool campaign missions, and every one, for the most part, felt different from the other and offered different gameplay. Those were risks, and those were appreciated, and those were cool. But I do understand the criticism of franchises like that and other franchises like Assassin's Creed, which is on its 14th entry, by the way, that you don't see that much innovation in between, right? And I think one of the reasons why is because
I want to know what you mean by innovation.
Innovation, new game mode experiences, new mechanical innovation, new systemic ones. I think it'll make more sense when I give this comparison that I'm getting to.
Sure. Okay.
You take a look at the jump from, let's look at, I'm going to sound a little bit like a weeb, but to look at the Japanese companies that innovate on the AAA franchises. The jump from Resident Evil 6 to Resident Evil 7 was huge. Complete tone shift, different perspective. You would never see that, I think, from a lot of these Western franchises. The only one that I could think of that did it was, I guess you could say Ghost Recon, but not really, because Ghost Recon has had a third-person perspective to it since Ghost Recon 2, and then Graw kind of went back to first, so I don't even know if that would be fair to say. So I think when people criticize Call of Duty or others and say, oh, they're not innovative, it's because they have other bases of comparisons with other AAA studios, like Capcom.
I was just looking up the release dates. So Resident Evil 6 came out in 2012, and then 7 came out in 2017. So that's a 5-year difference.
It's also like a really good example because I think one of the things with AAA in regards to Assassin's Creed and Call of Duty and even Resident Evil back in the day is these big AAA companies find their audience, right? Call of Duty has its audience, and people want new things and they want something different. But when the studio deviates from what the general consumer's expectations are, people turn on them. Like Infinite Warfare, for example, got chewed out for its trailer because it was trying to do something.
It was different.
And people didn't like that. So then, Call of Duty goes back to doing what it's known for, and then people go, oh, well, this isn't what we want. And Resident Evil is a great example because they did take, fixed camera angles, survival horror games. Then they completely transitioned to doing action with Resi 4. Completely different kind of way of playing, different tone. People really liked it, but for different reasons. Then they pushed it a little bit too far with 5 and 6. And then the fans started to turn. Right, this isn't what Resi's about. This is too slapstick. This is dumb. And then they brought it back with Resi 7, but with a new fresh coat of paint with the first person perspective. But it's about like honoring fan expectations, and honoring fan expectations while also attempting to innovate is really difficult. And then you think of scale, like how much it costs. And like how much of a risk it is to do that kind of innovation. I don't begrudge these big devs and the decisions they have to make. It's terrifying.
Sometimes, just from my I'm just quoting or gonna share my personal experience with this creative question, because I have worked with some developers who felt like, man, I'm like just creatively trapped because I'm just working on this franchise. And like it already has an established set of rules and expectations, and I can't be creative in that. And then I've also seen the other side where, it sounds like what they're actually telling me is, and this is just my understanding as a producer, right? Talking with designers and other devs. What they're actually saying is that they feel uncomfortable being restricted in the creativity. Right? I personally believe that it's much harder to be a creative developer joining an established franchise
100%.
And driving it somewhere, because you have to have an understanding of the player base. You have to have a really good understanding of the game that you're working on, right? Like you have to have played the other ones in order to be a really good designer. I mean, at least, tried some of the levels of the previous games. So I find it's personally more challenging and rewarding to try to make something fun and different, but within these like restrictions. And I guess that's why I've always enjoyed AAA development, right? Like when I joined Ragnarok, for instance, they already have an established universe with God of War, right? Like what can you do that sets it apart from the last one, but also respect the previous one. You know, I think there's just a beautiful experience in trying to capture players' hearts, but also give them something refreshing. And that's where I find creativity the most. I do respect and understand that a lot of developers would rather just have absolutely no restrictions whatsoever and run with whatever they want, and they decide like that's what it means to be creative. And I think that you know, a lot of that lands, unfortunately, on the indie side because publishers tend to be a little bit pickier with how much free reign they give you. Right. So as an indie developer, you usually have the no restrictions. I'm going to try out whatever I want. Opportunities.
How difficult is it? Like, so for example, let's say that we're working at unnamed AAA studio, like us three.
Okay.
You're a producer.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I'm a designer.
Mm-hmm.
Mikey, where do you want to be?
I'm the janitor. I'm the janitor.
He's the janitor, right?
I'm gonna clean up after
Mikey,
you guys. I'm just an observer.
He's gonna watch the build soak test to see if anything happens.
Well, here's the narrative. What happens is I'm doing some crunch, right? I'm working late, and because I've had this idea. Mikey comes back. He's emptying the garbage in my office, and he comes in and he goes,
"Okay, I'll do it." Hey Jay, how's it going? How's work?
Yeah, it's do you know what, mate? It's a bit rough. I'm feeling a little bit creatively stunted. Like I've got a leash on. Like I've got a creative leash on.
Man? That sounds tough.
I don't know, man. I've just got this like I've just got these cool.
Speak up. It's a little loud.
Sorry, I just got these ideas. You know, I've got these ideas. I've got all these ideas bursting out of me, and I just feel like, you know, there's a creative gag on. I can't say the things I want. See, like, take a look at this thing, and you look at my screen, and let's say that you come up with this fantastic idea, and because I'm like, fuck the lower class.
Fantastic idea.
I take the idea you have, the suggestions you say for my idea, I take them, right? In my free time, I prototype them, and I go to the producer, Tina. Actually the janitor, Mikey, but I have come up with this idea. It's actually quite creative, and we think it's really interesting. I know. Let's say that I want to try and get this in the game. I'm like, I really believe in this idea. What are the steps to like making that happen? Is it like, does it have to go to a committee or like
on a AAA team? All right. So first, I assume that you had the blessing of your manager to work on this thing, or your boss, or whoever that may be. Let's say the answer is yes or no.
Yeah, great.
Maybe it's no.
Or let's say I do it in my free time out of passion.
Yeah, free time. Yeah, sure. Okay. So the answer is no. We first take it to your boss. Show them what you've been working on.
Right. That's step one.
Yes. If they love it and like it and want to pursue exploring it, we talk to either the game director or creative director, right? And say, look at this cool idea. They either decide, shut the fuck up, you're not doing that. Or they say, interesting. Why don't we play test this with the whole team and see what it could be, if there's anything there. Or even like within your own department, like let's just play it with the design group and see if they like it, right?
Yeah.
Review it, talk about it. It either gets killed or people say, I think there could be a spot here for this. Let's explore it and let's get it on the books. And then it becomes a formal feature request. So that would be the basis of it. I think that's kind of like what happened with Battle Royale for Apex. You know, they're like, hey, I got this game mode. And we're like, oh, that's cool.
That's cool. Yeah. But that's quite a lot of steps where like things could just get shut down for very justifiable reasons. Like this is fun, but might not fully work in the scope we have, and will cost millions of dollars to try. Like, do we really want to do that? It's just there's so much back and forth. But like for the indie perspective, I'm doing this on my game currently. I will just in the night not be able to sleep and think of something like, you know, a spark of inspiration will hit me. I'll be like, damn, that's really cool. I'd really like that in my game. And then I'm like, wait a minute. I'm making the game and I just get up and I go implement that feature like in the night, and I don't have to ask. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, right? But I have the freedom to do that. But that's because of scale. It's not because there's this formality in the AAA structure. It's just there's so many other people working on it. You can't really do that, right?
It's a bit of formality, but also the formality is in place because if you do something, it'll most likely impact at least, I don't know, like 5 to 10 different other departments. And they're unwillingly signing on if someone says we're doing this.
Scale, right?
Give them the heads up. Yeah, so it's because when you make a game on a grander scale, the work and effort made by people is more I want to say focused, or like you have less of a an ability to just like hop between, hey, I'm going to do the design today and then I'm going to do the animation for it tomorrow. Like an individual person doesn't do that in majority of AAA studios. It's very rare that you get a dev like that. When you do, people love it. But it doesn't happen that often. So everyone has their specific job, and that's why there's a formal process.
Yeah, it's like a chain you have to go through to fully realize something. It's rough, right? Like, what was it like in Double, Mikey? Like, did you see any of those kind of sparks of, we've got this cool idea, let's just try it, or was there a bit of that formality as well?
It wasn't too formal, but it was also kind of similar to what we just described in our imaginary AAA studio. Somebody has an idea. You go to somebody who is in charge, whether it's the game director, creative director, or the lead, and you say, "Oh, I really want to try this." There might, in AA, I feel like there might be, because AA is really just indie, but you have more money and maybe a little more structure. In that environment, it's not unheard of to have people go like, "Yeah, sure, like let's try it. You could spend your time on that if there's time," or for the person to have just, because there's a little less structure in AAA, maybe like, "Well, I did it anyway, and I hope you like it," which could be good or bad as far as like getting to other tasks. But that happens. Somebody just gets excited by something and they think it's okay and they go with it. But yes, it's definitely happened where we've had ideas on the teams I've been on where we think, you know what, this would just be kind of cool. Let's just give it a go. Sometimes we even have a structured way to do that. I've been on teams where we straight up say, like, you know what, this week we're going to do a game jam. And this game jam, we're going to do whatever we want, or, oh, it's going to be a game jam within this theme. Like, it still has to fit for the project. It can't be something totally out there. And let's see if anything sticks. And sometimes we did that, and it did. And that's a nice structured way to allow for the creativity that we're kind of describing here. My impression is in AA, it's easier to get stuff across the line than it is AAA, because there are more stakeholders. There are more people who have people above you that can say, well, no, that's not to the vision. That's not to the brand. That's too risky. We can't do that. Or even something more shallow, like, my son played the game and he really likes this. Do this instead. That shit happens too. And so I think in AA it's easier, but it still involves vaguely the same process of, I have an idea. I need to talk to a person responsible for filtering out all the, or making sure everything filters through the vision of the game.
Yeah. It's interesting because, like when we originally had this discussion about what we wanted this podcast to be about, Mikey, you mentioned Assassin's Creed as an example, and you'd love to see something, I think, a bit more different from what they've been delivering. What would they have to do to be creatively different from your perspective? Like, if you could unleash them in your terms, like, what would they be doing differently?
I think a perspective shift would be interesting. Go to first person. Take AAA Ubisoft resources and make first person melee in Assassin's Creed. That's like half stealth, half action. Feel really good
with
awesome.
Mirror's Edge platforming and stuff.
And take inspiration, because Mirror's Edge had combat too, right? Take inspiration from Mirror's Edge or Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 or 2, Dark Messiah. Like, there's so many different good first-person combat games that are, I guess, also RPGs. It depends. And I would love, I mean, this is a fantasy scenario since you're asking me, but I would love to take a studio that has AAA resources and to just do something bold like that. And that's one of them, because I feel like Assassin's Creed combat is, I don't know, like it hasn't changed too much in the series. I haven't looked deep enough into Shadows to see if they innovated on it. I heard that some people liked what they did with the combat. But when I watched video of it, I saw it felt kind of samey to me. And I feel like it would be interesting to take a risk there. The same way I feel about map navigation, level navigation. I think that they've made an effort in Shadows and in recent Assassin's Creeds to not make it feel like you're just running from marker to marker. There's a little more discovery when it comes to map navigation. But at the same time, like one of the reference points we were talking about that I plan to bring up, Adamfall has a really interesting thing where you will find some piece of information, right? Like in a journal or whatever. And it won't just pop a little marker up on your map. It'll say, here are the coordinates if you want to check it out. And then it's up to the player to open up their map, look at the grid, look at the longitude, latitude, etc., figure out where something interesting is that they read about in the journal, and navigate their way there. That to me is an open world innovation, right? Which we can't expect from Ubisoft because they can't afford to take risks like that. Now, that being said, there's some hardcore modes like in the new Ghost Recon Breakpoint.
I do want to stop you there because we don't actually know what they can and can't afford to take risks on. I do think there's a difference between taking a risk and also respecting what their player base wants. I think that's a hard line to stay steady on.
And also thinking about their thoughts on the scope of their audience, right? Because I agree, Mikey. I think Atomfall is doing a lot of interesting things with its navigation. The fact that the player has to use their own intuition on where an item would be or a quest objective would be based on the dialogue they've heard and the notes they're reading. Super, super cool. But I know of a lot of people who would not want to do that. Like, that would be tedious to them, or they kind of do just want to follow markers. Not saying that that's what should be done, but Assassin's Creed is played by such a huge variety of people, and a lot of the people who I know who really like Assassin's Creed are all dads who have no time.
I don't know, man. I want to challenge that. You look at a lot of the reception of the last few Assassin's Creeds, and this is anecdotal. Like, we'd have to survey, we'd have to do the data collection, etc. There's a lot of sentiment of people who like Assassin's Creed games and say, you know what, this is feeling kind of samey. You also get that from the Far Cry franchise. I think it's part of why
I agree.
The reception to 6 was so weak. So it's not like gamers only want the same thing over and over. They want... Okay, I'll say it like this. There is something to be said for staying within the brand, sticking to the identity, right? Like, this is a sequel. I don't want to feel like I'm playing a totally different thing. Mm-hmm. But there's also something to be said for taking a little bit of risk. And I think there's space for innovation in all the franchises we're talking about. And it gets rewarded, clearly, because you can look at, as I said, like, you play, this is an extreme example, Resident Evil 2 original and the Resident Evil 2 remake, vastly different mechanically. Modern Warfare 2 original, Modern Warfare 2 2022, not vastly different. Prettier with some innovations, some interesting new game modes. It's not the same thing. That's what I would argue. There's a balance between all of that. You could still feel like a sequel and do new stuff.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think one of the things is like a vocal minority.
Well, like when you say new stuff like that, what do you mean by new stuff? Because every Assassin's Creed has a brand new location, brand new timeline, brand new story, brand new. I like what is missing for you?
Again, I think it's mechanical and systemic innovation more. The setting, it's that's a big part of their series identity, and like there's nothing wrong with going to new settings, right? I thought it was cool that they're finally setting one in Japan. The story itself, I mean, that's not really the space that I'm talking about. I mean more systemic gameplay, and I guess even UI UX stuff too. Taking some changes there, which is why I provided the examples of what if you changed the perspective and you made combat work differently? What if combat got like a little stealthier and a little less brute forcey? I don't know, maybe we get back to the roots a little bit in that. That's the kind of space I'm talking about.
Well, to be fair, we don't know if the devs actually tried something like this, like changing from third to first, right? And like sometimes there are situations where they do try stuff like that internally, but then it doesn't ship because for whatever reason it didn't work out. Like I could think of an example, like just watching a quick gameplay of Atomfall. It's very slow. Like you're aiming down sights and you're shooting at things. I don't think that would necessarily work in Assassin's Creed because when you're in stealth, sometimes you gotta like sprint. And me personally, I struggled with like Mirror's Edge, for instance, when you had to speed up to do things. And in first person, it like nausea is like a real thing that you have to deal with players. And how do you prevent that? And is it even worth it to like go down that rabbit hole? Are people going to get sick playing your game? Like that's a real challenge too.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Like going back to some of the criticisms Assassin's Creed or like Call of Duty or any of these games has got. I'm one of the people, like for Assassin's Creed specifically, I think that the games have got a little bit stale and a bit samey. I agree with those people, but I also understand that the people who are shouting on the rooftops about that might be the vocal minority in that case. I know lots of people who are completely happy with how those games play and they view them as ways to just access that era, right? It's like a theme park for them.
Your point, Jay, Shadows did sell very well, and the money does speak to reception better than, well, not better than, but in a more quantifiable way than sentiment can be.
Yeah, and they moved into a different space of becoming more of a kind of like an open world like action type game rather than a pseudo weird assassin stealth parkour game as Assassin's Creed was. And I never liked the open world formula, like that kind of Ubisoft sandbox formula that was kind of egged on by Far Cry, but a lot of people do like it, right? And clearly because the games are selling. It's not just because the game's set in Japan that it's selling so well. People do like that formula. And I don't begrudge big AAA companies for being like, we found our groove, our audience seems to dig it. Let's just try and keep doing this until people don't like it, and then we'll start trying to innovate, which is the very the Resident Evil way of doing things.
Well, I think the assumption we've been making this whole time, which I want to point out, is that working on a AAA game, you're working on an established franchise, and that you have like a starting point to jump off of, and rules and stuff to follow, almost like a licensed IP, right, in its own right. What about the AAA games that don't have that limitation and are just a brand new IP? I would you argue that they are creatively bankrupt in a way? I would say in some of the instances we've seen recently, especially in the shooter space, that it's a yes.
What are some of the recent AAA unique IPs that have come out? First of all, I think that let's try to find some just try to ground this in some examples. Because I'm having trouble thinking of one right now because they're all sequels to me.
Chat might have some as well.
Yeah, chat, chime in. What are some recent AAA releases that were unique IPs?
God damn it. They're all at the top of my head. Embark Studios had one, a new battle royale. What was it called? Embark Studios.
Concord.
Yeah, Concord's one of them. The Finals. Okay, so the Finals is a first-person shooter from Embark. That's the one I was talking about.
Yeah, I played a lot of Finals.
They, to do a shooter, there's a lot of like specific things that shooter fans want and expect, and if you don't have it, like they're not going to enjoy it, right? It's just a whole different beast.
It is.
How about the game we just talked about last week? Or is it not last week? A few episodes ago, the one from Mountaintop.
Vector Divide?
Yes. New IP, right?
Yeah. They had a cool innovate. Like the game didn't do well, unfortunately, and we did talk about why that might have been. But they did have some innovation, and they had a AAA budget, I'm pretty sure, and Their innovation, I think, was that ability to clone or copy yourself and get the extra life, which is a really interesting spin on the competitive framework, right? Of being able to like place a guy somewhere that's you, and then you can switch back over to him if you die, I think was how it worked. Yeah, to me, that is a point toward, well, you could still have some innovation in the AAA space. And that's a good example to me of a thing, of a core like combat or gameplay innovation that provides a new play space.
What about like Marvel Rivals? Does that count? Even though it is Marvel.
I feel like Marvel Rivals, they had innovative aspects too. Like the team ups is pretty cool. I don't know of any other games like that do team ups, right?
I guess so. Well, I heard, like fans initially saying, "Oh, this is just Overwatch."
Because it is
at its core, yeah, it's still an Overwatch styled hero shooter.
Yeah.
But I would also want to try to acknowledge, right, like that, yeah, it was within, just like you're talking about how certain games have to stay true to their identity. I imagine that the dev team on Marvel Rivals is saying like, well, we do have to stay true to what people expect of this genre, right?
Yep.
And I mean, I won't begrudge them that, and I appreciate that they tried to innovate within it.
I think they did. I played an ungodly amount of that game. Not anymore, but it's. I think it did innovate in a lot of spaces. I made an entire video on it. But it, like you're saying, it takes the basis of a genre, leveraged its incredibly popular IP to get a boost in initial sales, so people give this, what people were saying is a copy of another game, a chance to realize that, oh, actually this is better. And I think that's what we see with a lot of other big AAA games with new IPs. You can smell what they're trying to harp off of, and like what they're trying, the audience they're trying to capture, right?
Yeah, like X Defiant is a good example of that too, right? Like a lot of people played that and said it felt like Call of Duty.
Yeah. So it's, if you're making a new thing and it just plays like the other thing that I could play, well, why aren't I playing that? That has been around for, 20 years and I have a lot of, sunk cost fallacy in it and stuff like that.
But the thing
I'm having trouble loading the chat. Sorry, Tina, real quick. Did anybody say anything in the chat of good examples of this before we continue?
Okay.
Indiana Jones was a good one, but I think that gets into the same genre or the same realm as Marvel Rivals, which is like it's the genre itself. That first-person action adventure it's quite tried and true, but it's used its Indiana Jones IP to be able to do some interesting things with its design as a jumping-off point. Right? It's I think we should try and think of like brand new IPs rather than ones that are using pre-existing media.
Right. But good point made, right?
Is a good example.
Indiana Jones was Machine Games had not done an Indiana Jones game like that before. So no. I see the point, but yes, I'm thinking about like totally unique IPs. Yeah, someone here mentions Doom, but of course that's like here's Avowed. Avowed,
yeah.
Of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. South of Midnight is another one they said.
Mm-hmm.
I want to play that game. I'm so excited for that.
Yeah, that game looks great.
It looks so good. I just want to say I don't believe that any of these games are restricted from creativity. They're obviously solving creative issues, even down to like a really small scale, something that we may not consider creative just because we can't see it. Like even in like workflows and stuff that they use could be a creative challenge that they solved. And we just don't see it as players sometimes. The thing I wanted to mention is that when you are working on a new IP, brand spanking new, a lot of the time creativity can be sort of restricted based on your genre that you're working on by the person footing the bill or by the publisher, right? Like, let's be honest. Like, the publisher will want a strong reason to be spending their money on you. And they're going to use focus tests to say, well, here are the games that are kind of similar to what you're doing. So maybe you should copy these things that they've done. Right. And then they feel better personally at the end of the day saying, like, we gave you $100 million and we feel better about spending it because we know we might get, I don't know, like a Pokemon out of it or something crazy like that. Like it just, and that's where I think it can stifle creativity, is the things that happen outside of the game dev studio. the people talking about finance, the people talking about marketing, the people that are deciding whether your game is going to continue after the next green light.
It happens in indie as well. Like a lot of what can stunt creativity is the immense success of something else. A lot of Metroidvanias in the genre now just look and play like Hollow Knight because Hollow Knight sold like hotcakes. Like, so every game's just trying to emulate that. And yeah, they're trying to do some things differently, but those successes push those designs to become genre staples. And then every game starts to look like that. And this happens from the indie all the way up into AAA. And sometimes that's good and sometimes it isn't, right?
We got an interesting question.
Phasmophobia is a good example of that. I was just going to say, Phasmophobia is a good example of that. Lethal Company, co-op horror. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of games really similar to Schedule 1.
Battle Royales.
A wild success
Battle Royales
that has had.
Yeah.
Did you guys play Schedule 1 yet?
Yeah, we played it. Wait, did we play? Yeah, Yahtzee played it on Yahtzee Tries.
Okay, yeah. It's a drug dealing game, Tina. It's like a first person sim game about building up a drug empire. Do you say tight?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a breakout success. It's amazing. It's like made by one guy for the most part, and they gross like what $40 to $50 million in a week.
Yeah. Oh my god! I see the trailer. You're in the. Yeah. Oh my god.
The art style is like a little more Rick and Morty inspired. It's a crazy story of success. And as to Jay's point, yeah, you're going to start to see people
it's kind of like
trying to ape that or imitate that. Yeah, it's a little South Park. It's got that cartoon.
But that's a tale as old as time, right? That happens in movies. It's just what happens.
Sorry, Tina, what were you going to say before?
Quadruple Tuning had a question that I think, Mikey, I'd love to hear your answer on. Would Assassin's Creed players accept if the next game pivoted to pure stealth, for example?
And that would be wild, wouldn't it? The answer is that we don't. The answer is we don't know, of course. I think if they went full stealth at this point, no. But leaning into combat that was perhaps a little more stealth driven, like the series originally was built around, could be interesting. Like I don't mean to advocate for returning to earlier in the series just because of some sort of sense of purity with the originals or nostalgia or something like that. I just feel that it would be interesting to try to, when a series has gone on for that long, there's merit to trying to get back to the roots a little bit.
Half of Shadows does that.
I'm going to read a couple questions that we got, but go ahead and Mikey asked you how so. Let's do that first.
So in Shadows, you play as two characters. One of them is like a stealth-focused ninja-esque character, and one of them's a samurai that's more brute force, can like run through walls. So you can switch between what ones you're doing. They have their own individual missions, but the stealth itself isn't that deep. It's very surface level, and that's because they're splitting their design time between two different gameplay styles. Right?
Yeah. And that's part of this might have been that team's or those teams, because a ton of people worked on Shadows, their effort to sort of resolve that and say like, well, yeah, we've kind of strayed from our stealthy roots. Let's bifurcate it, or whatever the word would be, stealthy character and action character. But yeah, then you split the design time. From what I saw, because I didn't get a chance to play it, but from what I saw and I watched footage of Shadows, it seemed like even the stealth gameplay was still like kind of a low risk when it came to like fighting groups of guys and running around. And as you said, like it didn't feel like it was too deeply built, which is okay. Like it's Assassin's Creed and it's not Thief, right? So I don't have that expectation. But again, like I can't help but wonder as a player and as a developer how cool it would be if some of these AAA studios used their resources and just had more of a creative license to try wild stuff or just different stuff. And I kind of look to certain series as proof that it's possible. Right, when it comes to whether it's Resident Evil is one, Doom is another one. Doom, the original Doom, up to 1 and 2 was Doom. 3 they tried to make it like a little more, I guess, horror, and it became sort of like an action horror game. And then there was a huge lull, and then they came back and they were in a sense like very true to their roots, but innovated in like massive ways. The combat felt completely different. I think one of the developers described it as like Bruce Lee on a skateboard or something like that, where you still get the fast, brutal violence of Doom 1 and 2, but you have really great mechanical innovation, like the takedowns that you do when you wound demons, and the interplay of getting health and armor and ammo and always trying to manage those three things.
Yeah.
those to me are just great examples of like, okay, we've got a series. We're going to do something wild and different. It's going to be true to the series, but it's also going to be different. That's one of the ways that I feel like those are just a couple examples of franchises that were able to do that. So I feel like it's very possible. You just have to be willing to take the risks.
I mean, like the obvious thing for me to ask you then is like, so like Call of Duty in space, is that different enough?
You're referring to Infinite Warfare?
Yeah. For you specifically
Yeah.
in this example, would you think that was different enough?
To me, Infinite Warfare, I didn't play multiplayer too much, so I can't speak to that. The cool thing for me in Infinite Warfare was how it changed things as far as storytelling and narrative went, and then obviously what you're saying, the space stuff, the setting. The setting is, different. I would argue that like there's only so much more that you can do when you have to have that Call of Duty gameplay. So while the aesthetic and the setting was very different, it still very much felt to me like a Call of Duty game. Like there's not too much that you can break out of, and you can't do wild stuff as much as I might have hoped when it came to space combat. Because ultimately what you were doing was running around in close quarters and some bigger environments and, taking cover, aiming down sights, recharging your health, all that kind of thing. The story was the cool part to me because we finally got a Call of Duty story around that era that wasn't deeply cynical, right? Which was nice because that's a big part of what Black Ops was. And other people might say it felt like, I don't know, jingoistic or cheesy, but I liked Infinite Warfare's story. That was the cool thing for me that I appreciated that other Call of Duties weren't doing at the time.
So it's interesting you say that because at the time when it came out, we got a lot of flack for being too different, and it wasn't what they wanted, and it wasn't the location they wanted, and it wasn't Call of Duty to them, to some of the most outspoken players. And which was really sad for me because when I think about the first green light pitch we had for this game, the concept behind it was so fucking cool and inspiring, and that's what like it drove me personally to be like, oh my god, I'm working on this. This is so much fun. Is the fact that like we started out the green light, you just running in like a European street. It could have been France. It could have been, I don't know, somewhere in the UK. And you see the cobblestones on the floor and you're fighting behind a car. And then you look up and you see this giant fucking spaceship above you. And you hear someone on the comms say, we're going to go fight them up in the air. And you see all of these like jets and the spaceships just take off into space. And they're like, are you coming? And then you get in your own little like jet and you go off into space and you get to experience that whole thing. And then you like free fall kind of when you're in space. And then a space battle happens. And I'm like, that's fucking cool. That is a fucking cool version of Call of Duty that I want. And unfortunately,
that's awesome.
When it came out, players, a lot of the like the outspoken players did not feel that way, which broke.
Yeah, I think it does suck. I think if I were like to interpret that, my interpretation would be, I guess to the players, the modern setting is so core to the identity of Call of Duty for them, or at least near modern. They really want to have their familiar guns, their familiar character outfits, their familiar real world settings. That was my interpretation. People don't seem to like futuristic or even World War II at this point settings for Call of Duty if we look at the releases over the past 8 years or so.
Socioguru 2000 says, is it fair to say, like in Hollywood, the higher the budget, the less creative risk or vision people in charge are willing to take?
I think so. I think it's... And I get it, right? Let's say that I make a game and I try and, just like with all indies, I try and be a little bit different, a little bit innovative to stand out in the space. And I hit the jackpot, sells a bunch, right? And I make $100 million, right? Like, awesome. Well, I want to make a new thing, right? I'm going to expand the team. I'm going to get bigger. I'm going to invest a lot of that money in. Well, now that I've done that, I'm like, yeah, there we go. Like, hit the jackpot.
For those of you listening, Eric has showered Jay with money. He looks quite rich and wealthy now.
So the question is, yeah, you want to invest a lot of that money into making the next thing, right? Well, what do? Do you make something completely different and hope? and hope like the recognition of your first game kind of carries the sales of that next thing, or do you make a sequel that slightly builds atop of what the people already liked? What do you do, right? Where do you put that money?
Yeah.
It's tough because if it bombs, that money's gone.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think as a principle, the more money involved, the more risk. People who have invested are more risk averse because there's a lot of money at stake. That applies to any industry, right? That's just kind of a given. What's interesting to me is how sometimes it happens where they become okay with the risk taking with some of the series I was referring to. Sometimes I wonder if there's a bit of a cultural component. Like, again, I probably sound like a weeb, but it feels like a lot of Japanese games are more okay with changing things and taking risks. Even with like stuff that's never been done before, like I don't know, what was it, the reverse multiplayer mode in one of the new Resident Evil remakes? I forget. I would never have expected that for them to throw in a multiplayer Resident Evil, even though it's been done before. PlayStation 2's Resident Evil Outbreak, all that stuff. But that's something that I appreciated because that felt like high risk stuff for a series like Resident Evil to do, which is so corely, which is so well known for having single player at its core.
Do you know what? That would be really interesting to have a someone who's worked on both the Western and Eastern game dev scene. Have them on the show. Wouldn't that be interesting, Tina?
I think so. We're saying that because we know someone that is lined up to talk exactly about that. All that said, like Mario changes and people fucking love it. How do we get...
Yeah, but it splinters off into its own things, right? We have 3D Mario and we have 2D Mario, and they're kind of their own entities. Yeah. And if you have the budget, maybe that's the best way of doing it, right?
Mario Kart, Mario and Sonic
Mario
at
Kart,
the Olympics, like...
Yeah.
It's almost
you
like
have more money than God, right?
They become their own sub-franchise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough.
Is that I wouldn't say that's creatively bankrupt, taking something that is successful and then spinning it into something different. That's kind of like what you're saying, Mikey, right? Is like
which example do you mean? Are you talking
like
about
any Mario game, like Dr. Mario or like whatever else? Just they somehow have made that character appear in different styles of gameplay, and they still do well. Or like WarioWare.
Sure, yeah. I think the Mario series, it's gone on forever, of course, and there's a lot of different spins they've put on Mario that are creative and innovative and push the. It's interesting. They might be one of the ones that have taken. I'm thinking about the whole lifespan of Mario. They might have had the most crazy spins into doing different stuff. Like when somebody started with Mario and he was running up and saving the princess and avoiding Donkey Kong's barrels. I can't imagine anybody there was like, you know what, one day
we're gonna put him in a
golfing game.
A golfing game.
Mario,
well, that's the thing.
Or tennis, right?
he's transcended, right? The success of the original Mario Bros. Was so big that it became an IP. It stopped being a game and a genre, and it became an IP. And once something becomes an IP, you can do whatever you want with it, right? Because the cast of characters could be in any kind of situation. That's kind of like the dream, I guess. If you make something so big, is to be like, cool. Everyone knows this character so well now. I could just put them in a fucking cart or make them go golfing, and people will still be like, cool, because the IP is so strong.
Or to what Tina said, like WarioWare. Right, that was a pretty. I can't think of any other game before WarioWare that was like WarioWare. Like I'm welcome. I invite being corrected on this, but that was a pretty weird spin, and I guess
chaotic.
Yeah. It's very chaotic, and it makes me think. Well, again, I guess it just speaks to the strength of, as you said, Jay. Mario kind of transcended himself, and he became such an iconic image that they could just put him wherever they wanted. I guess you could also argue it's not innovative to just make like, a golf game with your favorite characters, but I don't know. How many golf games were out around that time? And it's still a risk, right? Somebody in the chat said something that I could never see, which was the Last of Us party. Last of Us Racing, Last of Us social deduction game. That's hilarious.
I think thinking about it, it's just like when you have that much money and you have that strong of an IP, you can just touch into niche genres like golfing or karting, and you know you're going to get a return on it, right? And even if it just breaks even, then cool. You've now spread the IP to even further corners, making the entire brand stronger. Which is really interesting that Pokemon is not something that's really done this. It's done a few things, but it's also coasted on doing the same thing, basically, over and over and over.
Remember Pokemon Snap? Just taking photos?
That's
like a
true,
safari?
actually.
Yeah,
that's true.
That was gangbusters, right?
I don't know. Did it sell well?
Hell,
Nintendo, man, they just know what they're doing.
Yeah,
I do think there's a bit of a cultural component here. It does feel like Japanese game companies with monies, Japanese game companies that have a lot of money.
Monies.
Yeah, with cash monies. I don't know. They're more willing to try weird shit and take the franchises in different spaces. They're also more reactive, I feel like. Because what you said earlier, Jay, I did want to call this out. Yeah, by the time we got to, I'm praising the new Resident Evil remakes, but like Resident Evil 4 was a great innovative force. Some people don't like what it did to the series. But God, they really redefined action horror and inspired games like 100%, you know, and that was a huge deal. And then they got to 6, and they were like, "Whoa, we gotta slow down.
You've gone too far."
Yeah, and then they did, and they spun around like, "And we'll make it first person." And then with the remakes of 2, 3, and 4, they were like, "Well, let's get back to our roots a little bit, even more." And I didn't even think 4 would be that good at first because I thought it doesn't need to be remastered or remade. But they did a really good job remaking it. It felt great. So, yeah. I guess I'm a bit of a Resident Evil fanboy. Go ahead, Tina.
Sovereign donates €5 and says, "I'd argue Adamfall is very much AA rather than AAA. Rebellion described themselves as a AA studio and described Adamfall as an experiment for them."
What was the budget for Adamfall? Because that's a good question. Is it double or AAA?
I think the last time I looked up, they've got anywhere between 250 to 500 employees.
Damn, that's a triple.
That feels like a AAA. I know there's AAA studios that are bigger than that, but that feels like a AAA scale. I can't find anything on its budget so far. If anybody knows how much money Adamfall
like they might be a AAA studio that makes niche games because they're the Sniper Elite guys, right?
Let's see how much Adamfall made so far on VG Insights. 2.1 million gross revenue.
It's
only been like a week or two.
While you're looking that up, Far Too Many Frogs donates $5 and says the nausea issues that Tina mentioned about Mirror's Edge are exactly why I'm so immensely upset with the backsteps Yahtzee did with SSVB.
What's SSVB? I'm not familiar
Vagabond.
with that. Oh,
what? Okay. Yeah, what backsteps did Yachts do with his game? Far Too Many Frogs. Just post a message in the chat, and we'll clarify that.
They got nauseated by whatever. I don't know. Changes.
We're about to find out.
While Frog says that, while they get that message ready, nausea is a real concern in game development, dude. I worked in VR, and dealing with player nausea is really tough. A lot of VR design is specifically about avoiding that. And I still have friends that get nauseous. I have a friend that I play GTA 5 with, and he can't. He has to drive the car if we were going anywhere. Like he has to be the driver, otherwise he gets sick. But he's fine with everything else.
Sickness, yeah.
Yeah. So dealing with player nausea is a real thing that developers do try their best to account for, especially in VR and other places. Okay, Frog's talking about a flashing issue.
Yeah.
Well,
that's. Go ahead.
Dark Jackal donates $10 and says, "Hey y'all, thanks for exploring this topic. I don't think excessive creativity is what we should ask from AAA, but stable, functional, and professional products. Is that too much to ask?" No.
In an ideal world, that shit is what we should be getting, but alas.
This is a podcast in and of itself, right? Or this is a topic that we could do ourselves, which is like, why do games come out and they're broken, or something like that. I feel
we should
like
write that down. That is its own entire topic because I think the answer for each of our experiences is different, I think.
I think the I don't to give a short answer, a short take on it myself. Lots of different tools that have come out and that people are trying to like rapidly learn over the past 5 to 10 years. A lot of competition means you have to get your game out in this window. You simply have to, and even if it's not ready, there's a lot of different factors I think that play into that.
Yeah.
Our other question, Susiguru 2000 donates €5 and says, "How big are Japanese budgets, though?" I guess this is in response to us talking about Nintendo just throwing Mario at any type of genre.
Yeah, let's have a look. What's a good? Okay.
I don't imagine that they're as big as American AAA games, only because the market in Japan is much smaller. Like they
This says,
sell,
go ahead, Tina. Sorry.
I don't know, like God, I haven't looked at like MPD numbers, sales numbers since I was on the marketing sales side, like in 2007, 8. But I remember seeing like, oh, a game sold like 300,000 copies in Japan. That's great. And then by US standards, that's nothing.
From my little bit of research here, it seems like it's rather difficult to find the budget for a lot of Eastern games. They seem to be a little bit more secretive with how much games cost. I think a lot of we saw the whole debacle with Concord and people making up bullshit on how much that costs to make, and just blowing out of proportion because how much games cost isn't public information. It was a whole thing of like it was rumored to be 100 million, and then someone came out and said it cost 500, which is just wrong. Like that's 500 million, or it was
$1 million. No way.
Yeah, there's no way. And anyone who worked in game dev heard that and went, "Well, that's a fucking lie," because there's no way. It's not possible. But like people will just believe it, and also people have these weird conceptions of like it costs a lot of money to make games, right? They are expensive products. And then we're getting into like how much should games cost, because Nintendo just revealed that Super Mario Kart or Mario Kart World is going to be $80 a release, if not more in the US now. Thanks.
Oh yeah.
But
we will not elaborate on that.
yeah. So like we don't really hear a lot about how much games cost, and it seems like Japan is a little bit even tighter on that. But I'd assume it's similar budget sizes
to the US.
I was just doing some Googling and I couldn't find any reliable number. We have to look
at
at it.
Higher?
No, I don't think so. I don't think they spend a lot on marketing, unless you're Nintendo.
Yeah.
You don't see like Final Fantasy on billboards out here, do you? I don't think so. Yeah, because that's where a lot of budget goes to. Is like half of your marketing, giant ass bloated budget is marketing. Like when they put the Halo logo on a NASCAR. Good.
I don't remember that.
NASCAR.
I'd like to see that though.
Was it for 3? I don't remember. I think
it might have been 3. Yeah.
Eric has just shown us a Final Fantasy billboard.
Did he? Girl.
Why does the Buster Blade look like it's playing Guitar Hero?
Ooh.
It looks like it's got a bunch of little discs. No, scales. Yeah. They're dragon scales.
But where was this billboard? You know what I'm saying? There wasn't. Maybe they just put it in New York or something, or next to like.
It's controllers. What?
Oh, that's wow. Cute. Look at that. Yeah. For those of you who are listening, we're looking at a Final Fantasy VII Remake billboard, I think. And the big sword has a bunch of controllers on it. Rebirth. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Thank you, Eric. Wow.
Oh, I love this comment. Yes, read it.
No, no, you go for it. You've read them all. I like hearing you read them.
Oh. Okay. Zub Mayer, did I say that right? Donates $5 and says, Concord proves playing it safe is sometimes the riskiest thing you can do. Executives do not get that.
I think a Concord, there's a lot of lessons to be learned from what happened with Concord. And yeah, I guess that's true. One of them could be, I wouldn't put it as playing it safe is risky. It's more like, if you're going to be careful when you imitate or jump into a genre that has existed for a long time. And also be sure that you're offering something different if you're going to take on people in that genre. Marvel Rivals, had some. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, finish your thought.
Just that Marvel Rivals, had some things that they did that Jay could go into in better detail than me, and has that were innovative, that allowed them to stand somewhere and say like, "Hey, here's our hero shooter, and you have motivation to play it for these reasons."
It's a live service, right? Like with these types of games, you have to be giving the player a reason to play your game over the other live service thing that they already have 10 years of time in. Like if you don't have that at hand, players aren't gonna fucking play your game. It's a genre issue more than a scope issue for me with Concord. But
yeah, do you guys remember Tim Schafer famously saying on our podcast that shooters are like the one genre that he will never touch or doesn't want to touch?
Yeah. I do remember that. Made me a little sad. I'd love to see a Tim Schafer FPS because I love that genre so much.
Yeah.
I don't know what it would look like, but
so much you need to understand about it that you could get it wrong or get it right on people. Yeah.
It's just a dice roll, right? Like even some of the best games get released and don't find the audience and bomb, but then have a resurgence later on because you can make the best game ever if you don't market it correctly, if you don't release it at the right time. It could just, it's a roll of a dice. It's crazy.
Among Us was a good example of that, right? Among Us on release, man, I think they had like sub 100 players or something, like at one point. I have to check.
When did they blow
up? I want to say like a year later, 6 to 18 months later, they blew up, but I can't really remember.
Wasn't it like COVID and then they put it on sale or something? I can't remember.
Maybe. Feels like a COVID game, for sure.
They could Mario-fy that little character from Among Us and just put it in different genres.
Yeah, if the core mechanic of that game wasn't murder, I'm sure there would be a like,
what if you had a bake some shit, but then somehow murdered people by accident in your restaurant? I don't know. I feel like there's a way to make murder.
I just think Nintendo and a lot of IPs just want to avoid having their characters be killed.
No, but I like Tina's sub in here. So what I'm hearing, Tina, which I don't think is what you said, but it's what I heard, and I'm going to run with it, is you're not a secret murderer. You're a secret baker. So it's Among Us, but instead of like being the killer who has to kill everybody and you try to find who killed whatever, you are instead trying to secretly bake a cake or bread, sourdough. Like, I don't know. Like you have to bake something, but nobody else can know that you're the baker. And then if they find you,
That's crazy, like, because I just, like, open the door, Tina's in there, and I'm like, oh my god, this bitch is making a flan. And I, like, run away.
How could you, Tina? And then, well, now we can't have a violent end to that. So what do we do once we find out someone's the baker to make this more kid-friendly? They get uninvited from your birthday party.
You eat,
does it really need to be kid-friendly? I'm sure kids play Among Us all the time.
No, well, we know it's
for what Jay
we've got
was
something.
asserting to expand the brand more.
Yeah, go ahead, you just eat them because Kirby's already proven that like Nintendo's fine with vor. So like just eat people. You just eat them.
Oh, someone had I think it was Speakeasy. Okay, in the chat. So basically, I'm gonna kind of take what he's saying and elaborate on it. So what if we're all in a restaurant or a bakery and we're all working together to make shit, but there's only one person that's supposed to sabotage everything?
Saboteur sous chef.
Yes.
This is a little bit of mafia, or there's lots of games about this. Barotrauma does this. Space Station 13. Like there's one little fucker mechanic who's the guy who's trying to fuck everybody else's days up.
I love that.
That could work really well.
Trying to ruin the banquet. This broth's too salty. Who is this?
Yeah, somebody put the salt in. A secret salter.
Oh my god. I want this.
What we didn't even plan an improv game pitch today, but we've done one.
Yeah.
What What do we call it?
A flanus.
A flanus? Oh, okay. I get it.
I don't know.
Let's call it
A baker's dozen, and there's 12 of us trying to make some shit.
And then the 13th person is the secret salter, the person who wants to ruin everything. Because a baker's dozen means 13, right? I think.
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
Hold on, I got it. Okay, yeah.
There
So baker's dozen. No, that's a pretty good name, dude.
Baker's dozen us.
Never before has there been a 13-player multiplayer game that is
no, guys.
13.
It's no. It's not baker's dozen. It's faker's dozen. Because one of you is faking.
Yeah. Jay.
I'm on fire
Make a
today.
Look at Tina. For those of you who are listening and can't see, Tina has, through Eric, donned a wonderful baker's hat and mustache. She looks very realistic.
Nah, pizza pie. Didn't Mario have a cooking game at some point? I feel.
Oh, I'm sure
If
he's
not,
had a
why
couple.
hasn't
Hold
he?
on. Mario cooking game.
Does
Why hasn't
Mario
there been
count? Does Mario count as AAA?
Wait.
Because I feel like
Yes.
that nullifies this whole conversation. The answer is no.
Yes, Mario is
Hold on.
AAA.
Hold on. I don't think there's a Mario cooking game. I'm not finding it.
Why hasn't there been cooking?
Why isn't there a
Mamma
Mario
Mia?
cooking game? Cooking Mamma Mia. Wow.
There's
I can't
been cooking
hold on.
mini games. Like Eric
don't
brought up a
believe
cooking
this.
mini game from Mario Party.
That's true. Yes, there's Mario Party cooking mini games, of course. But I'm stunned that there's not a Mario cooking game. Maybe it's in development.
Lord Robertus III donates €2 and says Nintendo is fine with VOR. JM8 2025. Did he say that?
Yeah, I fucking said it, and I stand by it.
Uh-huh. Okay, we got another donation. I am so bad at names. How do you pronounce it? TZ?
Tazilandi.
Tazilandi donates 20 sec.
T, just to see.
What's sec?
I don't know.
SEK.
Zilanti.
And he says Kirby Cannibalism Simulator. I mean, I'm down.
If you're not
Kirby
scared of Kirby, there's something wrong with you.
Kirby's explicitly violent. It's true.
Yeah.
He is consuming other people, and they go away and they don't come back. So that's death, right? But it's a gruesome death.
Becomes you. It's like a
So
fucked up doppelganger.
In Mario, you jump on a guy and he falls off the screen. He could be falling into a pit of soft balloons, and he might be fine. But in Kirby, he swallows you whole like a goddamn monster.
The void.
So the reason why we recorded this show later is because the guys were awesome in giving me the opportunity to talk to the VP of Lucasfilm Games today. I was moderating a panel for a different group. But I'm bringing this up because when I was talking to him, I thought about the fact that Star Wars, like that universe, is so robust at this point and touches so many lives from different age groups. And they all love something different about Star Wars now. Like I've seen TikToks that a ton of women make that go super viral about the fact that like, what is it? The two main characters from the latest main franchise. What's her name? Rey and
Rey and Kylo Ren.
Yes, they like love making romantic TikTok videos of those two and like the relationship that could have been.
Yes,
and that's just a huge thing. Yeah.
Well, this is the thing. Star Wars is.
But you could make a game that's just like a love story. And appeal to those women. Well,
yeah, but they won't.
Why not?
Well, Star Wars itself as an IP is.
They could go full
creatively
Nintendo
bankrupt.
and just touch all these different genres.
They could have for the past 30 years, but they haven't. They just keep making Jedi simulators and the same action games over and over because that's what people want. And the same with their movies and their TV shows. They're always touching on the same concepts and the same things, even though
same archetypes
the expanded
and stuff,
universe.
Yeah, sure. But I think the
So
tone is different in a lot of the stuff they do, right? Like the latest Skeleton Crew show. I don't know if you saw that, but it's just a bunch of little kids hodgepodging their way through like danger and chaos, almost like it's like the Goonies, basically. But
Kind of like
Star
the Goonies
Wars.
in space.
Yes,
You sold
Star
me.
Wars
That should have been the tagline. Goonies.
Star Wars Goonies.
Goonies.
So I
Yeah.
feel like they're doing it in TV. They're exploring these different genres. Why can't they do that with video games?
Yeah.
Wait, sorry. Do you mean
it's a
Star
risk.
Wars specifically?
Yeah.
Can't explore more genres. I
Yeah,
feel like
they
they have
could.
historically. They've done a lot of
Yeah?
different genres of
Like
games. Yeah, there's
Star Wars snowboarding? I don't
Yeah,
know.
we
No,
got
I'm
a
kidding.
Star Wars semi-tactical shooter to speak to, one of my fields of experience, Star Wars Republic Commando, pod racing in Star Wars
Oh, yeah.
Pod Racer, I think.
N64. Yeah.
Forget. Yeah.
Mhm.
What else? They've had
Rogue
Battlefront
Squadron.
was
All
Battlefield,
right. I'm eating my
Rogue
I'm eating
Squadron.
my words here.
Yeah, that's like a
Age
an
of
air-
Empires,
It's-
Star Wars fucking
Yeah.
the hell was it?
It's big.
Galactic Empires? I don't know. I don't know about lately though.
Everywhere.
Like those are all older games. What have they done lately? I'm not sure.
Jay, we should pitch a romantic, dialogue-driven mobile game for Star Wars.
We should, and you can only romance horrific alien creatures. One of them's Kirby.
Horrific. Jay, that's a little judgmental there. All forms of biomass are beautiful. Wouldn't you agree? His skeptical face.
We could make a mobile game where you're adopting creatures in the Star Wars universe, like adopt a Grogu. You're supporting
Oh, like
childless
Tamagotchi.
creatures. Yeah,
Let's do a
child-
Tamagotchi.
All right, chat. I'm eating my words a little bit. Maybe Star Wars has done a little bit of things here or there. I'm saying this as someone who, like, I own a lightsaber, like a full metal lightsaber. I love Star Wars, but I also subscribe to the Red Letter Media theory of speaking, which is it is as an IP creatively bankrupt and is doing the same thing over and over and over.
Well, okay. Andor.
Yeah. Oh my god, it's so
Right,
good. And it's like a very
Andor.
serious tone.
Pretty
Yeah.
fucking good and very distinct from all other forms of
Mhm.
Star Wars.
That's
I think we
definitely
gotta
a
give 'em credit
standout.
for Andor.
That's
But
definitely
you're
a
right.
standout.
Andor is exceptional. Andor is not like the other shows and games and stuff. And
Yeah,
again, to be
like for
fair,
every Andor, we get 5 different acolytes, and the new trilogy, right? It's just what did the Star Wars is a microcosm of what like the AAA industry is doing with the games on a big scale, which is like, what did people like about our thing? Let's just try and do that again.
I mean,
And-
if there's a difference between, well, yes, is it genuine fan service or is it like exploit them for more cash service? Like
Yeah.
if fans really want it, why can't they have it in a different way, a different medium?
Exactly, right. Like a lot of people have critiques of those newer things and those newer pieces of media, and some people absolutely adore them and live for them. Who are we to say that that's not the correct way to make the art, right?
So Murasaki donated $5. Thank you so much. They said internet Star Wars romance goes back a ways. Look up the Darth Maul Estrogen Brigade sometime. You know what? I don't want to.
Estrogen
the Darth
Brigade.
Maul Estrogen Brigade.
I don't want to.
Let
But-
me Google this right now for you, Tina.
No, don't.
Don't do it on a
Estrogen.
public.
I'm not going to show anything.
You're on a list now.
It's fine. I'm probably on other
We got-
lists.
I think we've got a couple more donos above that.
Okay, go ahead.
Wait, did you read out Gildan Yetish?
Oh, I didn't. Okay. Gelden Yetish. Sorry I missed you. $5 is what they donated. Thank you so much. They want more of the same. Give them a DLC. They want an updated version. Time to iterate. They've played it to death. It's time to innovate.
Mm.
Damn, girl.
In an
It's
ideal
in
world,
order.
for sure.
Yeah. DLC. I mean, DLC is a good alternative to just a full-fledged game. Like, I personally miss playing Overwatch 1, and for whatever reason, I haven't dived into Overwatch 2. I don't know why. I have no good reason other than, like, kids, busy, life is chaotic, but, like, I still have an itch to want to go back to 1 before I want to jump into 2.
Yeah, a lot of people do, and
limited
the
time.
devs have started releasing. I've started releasing content and updates that is just harping back to that. That is like, do you remember when Overwatch was good? Come back and play. We've reverted the balance and removed characters, so you can basically just play Overwatch 1. It's like they're doing that as well.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
Slay. I love that. I love Anna. She's my favorite.
There's a sequel to Darth Maul Estrogen Brigade. There's a second one.
It would appear that the Darth Maul Estrogen Brigade on DMEB2.net is just a bunch of honeys that really like Darth Maul.
Honeys that love Darth Maul. You mean like?
I'm saying honeys.
Are you reading that, or are you giving him personal description?
I describe them as honeys, I guess, for comedic effect. They're women. It says here, we are a group of Star Wars fans, female for the most part, with a fascination. Honey to me is like a thirsty female, and this website appears very thirsty. But it's nothing offensive. I mean, it's just women who, for the most part, as it says in parentheses here, who really like Darth. Wow, they really like Darth Maul. I'm scrolling now.
I've signed up.
And there's a lot of Darth Maul affection. These women have Darth Maul officione.
Look, dude.
In
Okay,
a big way.
so is it moral? Is it creatively corrupt? Creatively bankrupt to make a Star Wars game directed at these women? No.
Wait, why would that be bad?
I think that's great. If you made like a thirsty Darth Maul game that was only being sold to 5, as Mikey puts it, honeys of this website. I think that's the most ballsy thing ever.
Dude.
And that would be rad.
I'd respect them so much.
That could go viral. That could be fun. Real quick.
It's like when Sonic
said mall wives in the chat. I have to call that out. That's hilarious.
Yeah, that's
mall
great.
Wives.
It's like Sonic. They did that like game where the Sonic detective murder game. It just like dropped out of nowhere. What was that? What was that called? Everyone in chat?
Sonic Detective.
Like I famously hate Sonic, but the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog came out. That's an episode in itself.
Oh my god.
Oh shit! The murder of Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like
I never heard of this. It seems it was received pretty well.
Yeah, it was.
I would be honored to stand next to you both in a boardroom with Disney and be like, Darth Maul honeys.
Listen. We show them the website and we say, now this isn't from 2002. This is today.
Yeah, dude.
And what this proves,
they have a whole 4 active members.
I want to die knowing that we pitched the best worst game to the biggest fucking IP in the whole world. And I don't care how it goes. I don't care if it like explodes in our face. I don't care if we actually make it. The
biggest explosion would be if they greenlit it and we had to make it.
We're like, oh,
like that would be.
There's other explosions that would be big.
Yeah.
Like,
the mole wives know all about the explosions.
Oh yeah.
Mole wives. How do we make Darth Maul honeys a game? It has to be mobile, right? Because it can't have a big budget.
It has to be mobile because you have to be able to play it with one hand. And on that note, let's wrap this up because you've got to leave soon, Tina.
This is the best. I hope
Does she have to go now? Because I'm only now just thinking about his lightsaber as a sex toy and going out 2 directions.
Oh my god!
All the things that you could do with that. Because we got to work that into the pitch. Because we got to put our best things up front.
It's Disney. They're not going to let you do sex stuff.
It's new ownership, right?
Oh my god.
Wait, when did Disney buy it? I guess it's not that new anymore, is it?
No. They got a vice grip on that. Friendly family.
If there were one character with whom they would do it, it would probably be Darth Maul. Right? I feel like Darth Maul is open to weird stuff because he himself is weird and a villain. So,
yeah, you know the things on Darth Maul's face aren't part of his like species, like their tattoos.
Oh,
like,
cool.
What if he's just an average man and it's like we're doing a dating sim and he's trying to date women?
Yeah, okay, what is an average Darth Maul man like? What's his profession? What is?
This is fucking. This is so.
He's
stupid.
A carpenter.
No one's listening anymore.
He's a carpenter.
Like, we're done with these people.
I like him as a carpenter. That's good. He's just.
You don't know his sex story. His life.
We don't know his sex story.
I'm trying to find out his sex story. That's why I'm playing Darth Maul honeys. before we wrap this up, we've got one more donate from Susikiri 2K for €5 and says Andor still follows the Red Letter Media thing. It still has the Empire, Stormtroopers, TIE fighters, etc. Yeah, that show would be good even if it wasn't set in Star Wars. Just like a lot of games, you use the IP as a jumping off point. That's Marvel Rivals, right? It'd be a great game even without the IP attached. It just gives people a way to get into it.
There you go.
Yeah, I think Andor, I mean, we're not the first to say it, of course, but it deserves a lot of credit. It explores themes of Star Wars that feel like they should have been explored already, right? Of like, what does it mean to be a rebel and what kinds of people become rebels? And how does the Empire exert its control over its vast expanse of territory? It's expressed in so many interesting ways. How do the people that do those jobs, what are their thoughts about the Empire and the people they oppress? It's a great exploration of all those things. And Star Wars turned out to be a decent way to portray it, I guess.
Yeah.
He looks
and you
like
get your little silly little robot droids and stuff too. So everybody should be happy.
I don't know why Darth Maul looks like he likes thick women. And we should end on that note.
This
all right,
sounds
well,
like
on
a bit
that
of a
note,
projection to me, Tina.
Thank you.
Out of here before we get
Thank you so much for listening and watching, everyone. I really appreciate your time. Really appreciate all of your donations. All of the questions you've sent in, all the money you've sent in goes directly to supporting this kind of fucked up content that we do here. We wouldn't be able to get away with this if we were corporate owned. So if you want to see more of this, either throw more donos or go directly to the Patreon. You can give as little as $1 a month and support content just like this. We massively appreciate you. We're gonna have another episode next week. This one was out of whack because of some shenanigans last weekend. Don't be sorry.
Oh, wait,
That is what people are here for.
Yeah.
Next week we're gonna be back on as usual. So it's all good. We're gonna be back to normal. We got loads of content coming. There's no more streams today, but we got is it Adventurers Night? No, it's not Adventurers Night this week. Dude, the Darth Maul stuff's throwing me out of whack. Thank you for watching, guys. Massively appreciate you.
If you zoom in on episode 1, his lightsaber has a vibrate button on it.
It does not. Okay, we gotta go. Show's over.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye, guys.